Hello there. Welcome to Just the Dis. We talk about Blu-rays here. And for this episode, I am going to be highlighting some titles from Kino Lorber that they are releasing in the month of February. And it is quite a variety of stuff, and there's a lot of it. So let me get into it. I'll start with what is probably one of my favorite releases they're putting out in February, and that is Man on the Moon, Milos Forman's film. And this, of course, is written by Larry Karaszewski and Scott Alexander, two of my favorite screenwriters. And it is just a delightful, wonderful, funny, and moving account of Andy Kaufman's life. Him portrayed so incredibly by Jim Carrey. So much so that Milos Forman, in an interview that's contained on this disc, which I'll talk about in just a second, said that he never met Jim Carrey throughout the entire production. He met Andy, he met Latka, he met Tony Clifton, but Jim was never present. So he was always in the character, which if you've seen that documentary, you can totally understand just how lost in the character Jim Carrey became. But what we get is a really great movie. And so I really like the film a lot. And it's just one of those things where I loved it when it came out. I haven't seen it in years. And I was rewatching it with the commentary, and I was just loving it even more, and I need to just sit and rewatch the movie, by the way, because I don't, I can't remember if I don't think this has gotten a Blu-ray before. I think this might be the Blu-ray debut. Should have double checked that, but regardless, this is the one to have. This has, in terms of features, the audio commentary, which I just absolutely love. Any commentary, or basically any conversation between Scott Alexander and Larry Karaszewski, talking about their films, talking about movies in general, going on podcasts, just anytime I can hear both of those gentlemen talk, there's always something interesting said. There's always some little tidbit or anecdote that I've never heard before about some obscure actor or some director or some movie, and I just love to hear about their process as well. So anyway, you have a new commentary track with Scott and Larry, moderated by Howard S. Berger, and it's great, as expected. Not a surprise at all. Like I said, I will listen to anything the two of them are talking about, and it's really interesting to hear their conversation about the process of cracking the story, about little asides about this scene is true, or this is what really happened, or there's Andy Kaufman's real dad behind his fake dad in this scene. And so there's tons of great stories throughout the commentary. It's excellent. So that in and of itself is worth your time. But then we also have this other neat feature, which is called This Might Be a Story. And it's Scott and Larry again in conversation, this time with Milos Forman. And this is basically a 21-minute conversation recorded in 1999 on microcassette tape, apparently, that I think Scott recovered. And so they play the audio from that conversation, and it's Scott and Larry talking to Milos about the movie and about his process, and it's a really great conversation. All the while, they're showing footage from the movie. They're showing, old pictures of Scott and Larry on the set, or Milos on the set, and it's just a really great little chat to hear. So I really dug that. And yeah, there's just lots of stuff in there that some comes out in the commentary, just little things like Milos saying that he really wanted to get the extras even more right. Like, he's really good with extras and their faces, and in this case, he wanted to make it even better if he could, because he really felt like the audience and aka the extras are the antagonists of the film. It's like when Andy would go on stage, the crowd is the person that's sort of rooting against him in some ways, or that's what he wanted. But anyway, there's lots of great stuff in both the commentary and that conversation, so I do recommend that. Also, you have the old Spotlight on location, the making of. You have deleted scenes. You have music videos. No reversible artwork, just the same artwork, but highly, highly recommended. Definitely a must-have, I think. So that is Man on the Moon. Next up, we have one of a couple reissues, and by that I mean this film, Charles Bronson's film Murphy's Law, directed by the great J. Lee Thompson from 1986. This has been released on Blu-ray previously by Twilight Time, but it's long out of print, and so this is a reissue, and I don't think this has any reversible... No reversible artwork on this, but this is one of those enjoyable, but I think a little forgotten Bronson movies. A killer is on a rampage the hard way, learns the hard way, don't mess with Jack Murphy. Screen legend Charles Bronson stars in this thrilling game of hide and seek between a clever psychopath and a lone lawman hell-bent on reaping justice. Veteran detective Jack Murphy is suddenly a wanted man after he's framed for the murder of his ex-wife. Taken into custody by the very cops he works with, Murphy now has no choice but to escape and hunt down the killer that set him up. But even as he pursues a false lead, Murphy is pursued by the real murderer, a psychotic woman, Carrie Snodgrass, who I forgot was in this movie, out for revenge against those who institutionalized her 10 years earlier, including Murphy. So this is a frequent collaborator, J. Lee Thompson. He and Bronson work together a lot, but again, I do feel like this one is a little underappreciated. So you have the audio commentary with actress Kathleen Wilhoit and Nick Redman, that of course is ported over from the Twilight Time Blu-ray, and then Lyons Law, The Canon Years, an interview with actor Robert F. Lyons, who's in this movie, as is Angel Tompkins, who I'm a big fan of, and Richard Romanus, and more. It's a good, supporting cast as well. So Murphy's Law getting a reissue from Kino. And then another reissue is Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. This, of course, starring the great Fred Ward, and is a kind of a James Bond, but blue collar, and it's an origin story. It's a story of this cop who gets himself basically killed, but then is resurrected. He's not quite dead, and so he's resurrected and has his face changed, and this organization, sort of secret organization, brings him in to train him and to help him in their fight against bad guys, mostly Russians, I think, if I recall, in this one. Sort of a Cold War threat. But anyway, Fred Ward is fun in this. You have, of course, Fred Ward, Joel Grey as his sort of mentor there. Wilford Brimley, J.A. Preston, George Coe, Kate Mulgrew shows up. And yeah, this is just a fun 80s adventure. As you can see, there's this shot of Remo hanging from the Statue of Liberty. That's back in the 80s when they were redoing all the copper on the statue, and they had this scaffolding outside the statue for a long time. And they make that into sort of a set piece, and it's a very enjoyable one. But yeah, this is a fun movie from the 80s, one that I was a fan of and watched a lot as a young person. You have, I think, most of these extras are on the Twilight Time. However, the commentary that's on the Twilight Time Blu-ray is not included here, and instead they have an audio commentary with producer Larry Spiegel and co-producer Judy Goldstein, which I haven't had a chance to listen to yet, but which I am excited to hear. And then these featurettes are all ported over from the Blu-ray, which I think in turn was ported from a DVD. Created the Destroyer, writing Remo Williams, Unarmed and Dangerous, producing Remo Williams. Secrets of Sinanju, training Remo Williams. Balance of Power, designing Remo Williams. And Assassin's Tune, composing Remo Williams. So you get a bunch of stuff on this, a really nice special edition. If you missed it in the Twilight time, and actually there's also an Arrow Region B, and I don't have a comparison on the features for that one, although I do have that disc somewhere, because I do like this movie a lot. So that's Remo Williams. Next we have sort of a repackage here of FX and FX2. It's missing the subheading there, FX2, The Deadly Art of Illusion, lest we forget the full title of that film. But anyway, so this is a great series starring Brian Brown, and it's basically just giving you both discs. They've already issued these, but now you're getting both of them in one double feature pack. And if you don't know this story, it is Brian Brown plays Raleigh Tyler, who is a special effects guy and who gets roped into a sort of a police operation. It's beyond police, though. It's a little higher up than that, to help make a mobster look like he's been killed so that they can protect him so he can testify. But things get complicated and he gets sucked in and screwed over and has to find a way out. And that's kind of the first movie, and Brian Dennehy is his cop buddy. Well, not initially, but yeah. And then Dennehy returns for part 2, and part 2 is directed by Richard Franklin. The first one's directed by Robert Mandel. But part 2 I'm actually a fan of quite a bit. There's a great bit with a robot that Raleigh develops in part 2 called Bluey, I think. And there's some good stuff with that, but there's some good gadgets. It's 2 good movies for fun special effects gadgets, being used within the movie as illusion, but they're really being used in the context of the movie. I hard to explain, but anyway, I really enjoy these movies, and I like that this is now a double feature, and it's not on one disc, it's 2 discs. So it's FX and FX2. And we have The Final Option, which I've always meant to see. I feel like I remember this getting a DVD release a long time ago, and I want to say it was The Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema that put it out, but I may be misremembering. I may be thinking of a different movie. But anyway, this is the Blu-ray debut as far as I know. The closest you'll ever get to knowing the secrets of the legendary SAS Special Air Service Captain Skellen, Lewis Collins takes the ultimate risk when he infiltrates a fanatical anti-nuclear group led by the ruthless Frankie Leith, Judy Davis, when the group raids the American embassy. Skellen and his elite SAS colleagues must use all of their expertise and courage to save the lives of the high-ranking hostages being held captive. Inspired by the real-life Iranian embassy siege of 1980 in London, The Final Option, also known as Who Dares Wins, is a slam-bang counterterrorism thriller written by Reginald Rose and Ian Sharp. Co-starring Richard Widmark, Edward Woodward, Ingrid Pitt, and Robert Webber. I must be thinking of a different movie, because the Who Dares Wins is the... I don't know if I've seen this. Yeah, I don't think I've seen this. So this has an audio commentary by director Ian Sharp and producer Ewan Lloyd, moderated by film producer Jonathan Southcott. Last of the Gentlemen producers, the life and works of Ewan Lloyd, and radio spots and trailers. And this one does not have alternate artwork. So that is The Final Option. And then last of the slipcovers, we have Antichrist by Alberto De Martino. This is from 1974, not the other Antichrist. And this has Carla Gravina, Mel Ferrer, Arthur Kennedy, and more. And this one I'm very curious about. I've definitely not seen this. Feeling very Exorcist, obviously. Brand new 4K restoration by Studio Canal. It's The Exorcist Italian style in this satanic shocker from director Alberto De Martino. In Rome, a beautiful young woman is left paralyzed by the trauma of a horrific childhood accident, but when placed under hypnosis, she is seized by visions of her past life as a heretic and becomes a foul-mouthed seductress with a taste for perversion that leads to her defilement by Satan himself. Now mankind's only hope for salvation is the harrowing exorcism that will either cast out the devil forever or open the door for the unspeakable birth of the Antichrist. Mel Ferrer, Arthur Kennedy, George Coulouris, and Anita Strindberg round out the cast of this puke-spewing cult classic, with cinematography by Euroslee's King. Joe D'Amato shot the movie, crazy. And music maestros Ennio Morricone, that's great, obviously, and Bruno Nicolai. So two really good composers working on the score. Experience the Antichrist, also known as the Tempter, in all its uncut and unholy glory. So this one does have alternate artwork, very similar, but instead you have the Tempter on the cover. And then in terms of features, you have Raising Hell featurette with co-director, co-writer Alberto De Martino and composer Morricone. Must be an older featurette, I guess. Audio commentary by author, film historian Lee Gambin and film critic Sally Christie. TV spot, Tempter original opening credits. So, very curious about this one. Yeah, and I already showed you the alternate artwork. Okay, so that is the Antichrist from 1974. Then we have Village of the Giants from 1965. This is a Burt Gordon film, Mr. Big, a man known for making films about giant insects, animals, things of that nature. Amazing Colossal Man, giant people, I guess. I forgot about that. So he would do that a lot. That was one of his signature moves. And a lot of times he was using pretty lo-fi effects to convey the giantism involved. And so this is a really interesting one because it's kind of like Teenage Delinquency meets a Burt Gordon movie. But it's loosely based on, I want to say, Food of the Gods, H.G. Wells, which Burt did a movie of also later. So, I don't know, but there's an interesting story in here in that, one of the great things about this, two things. One, new 4K restoration by Studio Canal. Looks great. Two, has an audio commentary by Tim Lucas, who obviously I enjoy very much. I always find his commentaries incredibly educational, enlightening, and entertaining. This is no exception. He brings up a lot of fun stuff in the commentary about this film. I mean, for those that don't know, it's like a small town. Okay, I'm getting off track. Let's start at the top. So Burt Gordon pitches a movie, and the pitch doesn't go that well, and then he, off the cuff, comes up with this idea of what if we used a bunch of the young, children of famous people, like Beau Bridges and Andy Rooney's kid, and I want to say there's a couple other young people in this movie that are the daughters or sons of bigger actors, and they sort of play the delinquent group. And the producers in this case went for it, and at Embassy Pictures, I guess. And so that becomes the movie, and then it just becomes sort of a kind of goofy comedy in some respects, combined with the teen delinquency thing, wherein we have Tommy Kirk dating this girl, and her little brother is played by Ronnie Howard. He's known as Ronnie Howard in this film, and he is like a budding scientist type who's got, making potions in the other room, and he comes up with this special formula called goo. It's this purpley, spongy stuff, and it makes people grow really big. And the teens get a hold of it, and they become completely unbearable and sort of take the town hostage, if I recall. But anyway, the Tim Lucas commentary is great. He's pointing out a lot of great stuff, including talking about, the choreography being done by a very young Tony Basil, and Tarantino, of course, using the theme music from the opening of this film for Death Proof. Just tons of little bits about, trivia and, actors and things that are involved in the film and people behind the camera that were involved and what they did just prior to this. And, it's another great Tim Lucas commentary. So this is really a fun one if you're into this era and maybe the Beau Brummels who show up in the movie for a minute. And yeah, it's kind of a cult item for sure. So Village of the Giants looking great in a new transfer with a Tim Lucas commentary. That's a must. Then we have a personal favorite of mine, Chomps from 1979. And this, of course, stars, as you can see there, Valerie Bertinelli and Wesley. Oh man, I'm gonna screw up his name. Wesley Ure. I'm getting that wrong. He is an actor you'd recognize from Land of the Lost. He was also, I think, on Days of Our Lives. He was a soap opera actor for like a decade. And like I mentioned, Valerie Bertinelli, Conrad Bain is in this from Different Strokes. I think he was just getting Different Strokes right around the time this was being made, based on the commentary anyway. Chuck McCann and Red Buttons are two bumbling crooks. The basic idea is you have this young guy played by Wesley, and he invents this. He works for a security company owned by Conrad Bain, and he invents this security dog, which you see there. And it is this really small dog, but has incredible strength and powers and can jump and knock people over and fetch dynamite. And so it becomes a thing of like people trying to stop this dog from becoming the next big thing, and maybe sabotaging this thing. Larry Bishop is in this movie too, as a not so great shady type. But it's directed by John Chaffee, produced by Samuel Arkoff, and it is an AIP picture. So it was part of a deal that AIP had with Hanna-Barbera, or at least I understand that to be the case. And then, of course, this film flopped, and I think it liquidated the deal with Hanna-Barbera. So I think it's fun. I think it's a cute movie. It's PG rated. The dog swears. Oh, I forgot that what's his name is in it from Gilligan's Island as well. But like lots of robot stuff, some dorky stuff. It's goofy. It feels like, something Hanna-Barbera was involved with, but I'm a big fan of it. It's a fun movie. So it features a brand new 2K master and an audio commentary with Wesley Ure and co-writer Dwayne Poole, moderated by Nathaniel Thompson, which is a cool track, and an interview with Wesley and a trailer. So just nice to have this on Blu-ray for the first time. And then just a few more things here. This one is from Scorpion. This is also from Scorpion. It is Privilege. This is from 1967. This is directed by who directed this? Peter Watkins. And I feel like I heard Edgar Wright talking about this movie at some point. In the not-too-distant future, Stephen Shorter, played by Manfred Mann, lead singer Paul Jones, is England's biggest rock and roll star. His popularity, carefully engineered by his corporate handlers, has reached dizzying proportions. But when artist Vanessa Ritchie, played by the original supermodel Jean Shrimpton, is hired to paint his portrait, she discovers that he is unhappy and unstable. When matters take a devious twist, Stephen rebels in a startling manner, brilliantly shot in pseudo-documentary style by Oscar-winning director Peter Watkins and acclaimed cinematographer Peter Szyszewski, the Rocky Horror Picture Show, of course, and he worked a lot with Cronenberg. This darkly comic satire offers a caustic critique of 60s pop culture and corporate control. This has an audio commentary by film historian Daniel Creamer, and I'm definitely looking forward to checking this out. I don't think I've ever seen this movie, but it sounds like an interesting fable of sorts. combined with just this sort of tale of celebrity is something I've always found fascinating. So that is Privilege from Scorpion. Just a few more things here. Let's talk about 12 Angry Men. And this is not the original 12 Angry Men. This is the 1997 version, directed by William Friedkin. The same story you know and love, with a new cast, an incredible cast, by the way. I think this is made for television. We do get a 178 and 133 versions of the film. But the cast, as you can see here, Courtney B. Vance, Ossie Davis, George C. Scott, Armin Mueller-Stahl, Dorian Harewood, James Gandolfini, Tony Danza, Jack Lemmon, Hume Cronin, Michael T. Williamson, Edward James Olmos, and William Peterson star in this movie, and it is really great. I'm not always a huge remake guy, but this one is pretty fantastic. So I do have to recommend you check out 12 Angry Men, the William Friedkin version, now available on Blu-ray from Kino. And then we have a couple from Bob Hope, who I'm a big fan of, a great comedic master. This is a sort of a period piece he did called Monsieur Beaucaire with Joan Caulfield. Brand new 2K master, and it's The French Court Will Never Be the Same when Bob Hope gets through with it. A barber in the court of King Louis the 15th, Monsieur Beaucaire, falls in love with a beautiful maid, Joan Caulfield. When the king has had enough of the inept barber's shenanigans, Beaucaire is led to the guillotine where he's about to lose his head. Luckily for him, the Duc de Chandra, Patrick Knowles, rescues Beaucaire from his inevitable fate, transporting him to the Spanish court. However, when he later poses as a nobleman, it seems he may have pushed his luck a little too far. Featuring lavish costumes and sets, this classic comedy, directed by Hollywood great George Marshall, showcases Bob Hope at his finest. Melvin Frank and Norman Panama adapted the screenplay from Booth Tarkington's novel, Booth Tarkington of the Magnificent Ambersons. So this doesn't have any features, but it has some Bob Hope trailers. If you're into Bob Hope, definitely recommended. And then Where There's Life, another Bob Hope I'd never heard of. This one has William Bendix in it. And apparently comedy thriller. Hope stars as Michael Valentine, a timid New York radio personality who has his world turned upside down when he's named the long-lost heir to a faraway kingdom. He soon becomes the target of spies, kidnapping, death plots, and two determined women, his ex-fiancée and General Grimovich, a beautiful blonde militant who's trying to get him safely to his new country. Meanwhile, his ex-Manhattan cop brother and revolutionaries from his new kingdom are all out to get him. Perfect blend of comedy, action, and classic showcases in Bob Hope top form. And again, William Bendix, George Coulouris, George Zucco. So that is Where's Life with Bob Hope. And then lastly, let's talk about The Great Moment. This is with Joel McCrea and Bill Demarest. This is one of the rare dramas that Preston Sturges directed. This one turns into a more serious subject matter, focusing on the great medical discoveries in modern history. The Great Moment takes inspiration from the true life story of Dr. William Morton Joel McCrea, a dedicated dentist who discovers ether, otherwise known as anesthesia, in 1846. The doctor's great contribution to humanity, the tribulations he later faced sharing his knowledge, and his reluctance to capitalize on his discovery are meticulously laced with typical Preston Sturges humor and drama. Stellar cast includes Betty Field, Harry Carey, Bill Demarest, Franklin Pangborn, of course, and Porter Hall. And this one has Great Without Glory, an introduction to the film by historian Constantine Nasser, and Triumph Over Pain, a celebration of Preston Sturges, with Sturges' son Tom Sturges and acclaimed filmmaker Peter Bogdanovich and Constantine Nasser as well. So a nice special feature-laden movie of Preston Sturges that is totally underseen. So that's a great moment. And that is going to do it for this month's showcase. Lots of great stuff here to check out. As always, check out kinolorber.com for their latest and some sales they might be having, but definitely follow them on their socials on Instagram and Twitter, both Kino Lorber and KL Studio Classics, to get all the updates and all the announcements, which come fast and furious all the time. Anyway, thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and have a lovely week. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.